everyone, it's Carolyn from UmamiGirl.com. Today I'm going to show you how to break down a whole lobster. This is one of those kitchen things that I think can be a little bit intimidating if nobody's ever shown you how to do it, but once you know a few simple tricks, it's actually really fun. So this guy is a summer lobster. It's about 1.5 pounds, which is a little bit smaller than what I usually like to buy. Usually we go for about 2 pounds because you're going to do the same amount of work no matter how much meat is inside. But summer lobsters have a little bit of a softer shell, so they're a little bit easier to work with. Winter lobsters are also delicious though. Make sure you watch until the end of the video because I'm going to show you a secret about how much meat is actually inside the body cavity of the lobster. It's one of those things that not very many people know. Okay, so basically we've got the tail, the claws, the legs, which have a ton of meat inside, and then the body cavity, and I'll show you how to take apart and get the meat out of all of those parts. So let's start with the tail. The first step is to hold the body with one hand and the tail with the other hand, and you're going to twist in opposite direction. So I'm going to twist the body forward and the tail toward me, and then it just separates right out. Okay, now, so if you have a female lobster, there might be some delicious roe or eggs inside. This one looks to be a male. So here's the tail. Now the first thing to do is you're going to twist off the little fins at the bottom, one at a time. And then you can eat these kind of like edamame actually. You can bite out the little bit of meat that's inside of there. I'll take those out later. I'm going to twist each part off. The middle one is always the hardest to remove, but you can see actually there's actually kind of like a lot of meat on the inside. Sometimes that meat stays attached to the big part of the tail, and sometimes it comes out with the fins, so you can check. There's another one, and then the center one is a little bit tricky. See this piece, this one's empty, and then that gorgeous piece of meat stayed with the tail. So here, let me show you what tools I use actually. This is just a good old lobster cracker. There's some better kinds and less good kinds to use. This one I think is OXO brand. I'll link to it in the notes. And this one's really great. It has like a kind of little point in here, and it's really strong and easy to work with. And then I also just use this little picker, probably called a lobster pick. It helps to get small parts of meat out. So here, I'll show you how to use the pick. Here's a little fin, and if you just put the pick right inside there, you can very easily get out this gorgeous piece of meat. Okay, I'm gonna put the meat on this plate, and I have a junk bowl here. You should always have one of those and lots of paper towels. I'll take the meat out of the rest of the fins later and show you how to do the tail. Okay, so the first thing you want to do with the tail is actually kind of break its back by, it's not the easiest, but you want to bend it in the opposite direction that it wants to go. So it wants to curl this way. You want to do it this way and just pull, be a little bit careful until you hear it snap. There we go. Okay, and now it's easier to make it straight. And then you want to take your thumb on the bottom end of the tail, which is narrower, and you're actually going to push the tail meat right out the other side. Here. Take that off, and it's giving me a little trouble. There we go. You can just pull it right out. So this is the gorgeous tail. And now you want to take your thumbs, this is the bottom of the tail, and you want to pry it apart into 2 halves until you find the digestive tract, because you don't want to eat that part. Now sometimes it's very obvious. If your lobster has just eaten, sometimes it's very dark colored, but sometimes it's a little bit lighter like this. But you'll find if you just keep on opening it that it runs all the way down the inside of the lobster, and you just want to gently take it out. I know it's probably a little hard to see. You'll find it. Yeah, and then you just take it out. So this is a little bit gross, but that's what it looks like. Sometimes it's darker, and you just want to discard that. Okay, and then you have your tail meat. We'll put that over here. Next, we'll do the claws. So there's usually a bigger one and a smaller one. We'll start with the bigger one. Just go for it. So you want to grab onto the claw toward where it attaches to the body. And similarly, like we did with the tail, you just want to twist it until it separates. We can separate both claws right now. Do the same with this one. Just give it a twist, and it usually comes right out. Okay, now we'll go back to the big claw. And basically, there's a few joints in here, right? Anywhere that it bends, this one too, you can see that there's a joint. And it's a good idea to separate the lobster from itself at each of the joints. So this one's a little bit spiny, kind of depends, some are more than others. So sometimes I like to actually use a paper towel just to protect my hands, fold it up a little bit. And then I'm gonna do the same twisting. It's always twisting one piece in one direction and one piece in the other direction. And sometimes, oh, that's a little tricky. Sometimes you also want to do what you did with the tail, where if you see that the joint wants to move one way, you can kind of break it open by moving it in the other direction. So let's do this one. Okay, so that's one. There's actually another one right here too. Break that one open by kind of wiggling it back and forth. And this one's a little bit tricky, but I'm gonna go for it. Sometimes you just have to apply some force. Okay, and then for the claw, I like to take this part and just pull it back until it separates. And then you have the main part of the claw. Okay, so especially on the big claw, you'll find this piece of cartilage here. You can just pull that off and discard it. And then inside the little pincer, you can use your little lobster pick. And again, I'll leave a link to where you can buy this if you want. And you just want to get it in there. And the goal is always to get the meat out without breaking it if possible, but it's not always possible and it tastes the same either way. So this one's gonna come out in a couple pieces. There's that bit. And that's all that's in there. So we'll discard that. Now, for these kind of knuckle pieces, sometimes you can just push your finger inside or use the lobster pick to remove it, to remove the meat without breaking it any further. I think in this case, this one will probably just come out. Yeah, sometimes you can just do that. Also, I should say, there's like a white coating inside of a lobster shell, and that's some fat, and it's delicious. If you ever want to just slurp it up with your fingers, you can totally eat all of that. Okay, and then a piece like this, it looks like I'm gonna need to crack it. So usually you can just find what you feel like would be a comfortable place for you to apply some pressure. And sometimes you have to give it a few tries to see what works without slipping, but I'm just putting it right inside there, giving it a little crack. There we go. And it broke into a couple pieces, and I think hopefully that'll be enough to let me get this meat out. Wow, this is gorgeous. Yeah, there we go. So there's another beautiful piece of meat. Okay, this guy, here's another knuckle actually. I'll do this part later since I've already shown you how to do that. This is a pretty substantial claw that looks like it might be a little tough to crack. So let's see if I can do it with the cracker. If you start toward the pointy end and give it a couple of cracks, it usually will help break the structural integrity of the whole claw, and that will help you open the rest. But I am not sure, to be honest, if I'm gonna be able to do this with a cracker. Might have to show you one other tool that I use. I think we'll save the cracker for this claw, and I'm going to show you something else. Hold on one second. Okay, this might get loud, but sometimes I use a meat mallet, or you can use a regular hammer. If you really have a tough claw, I'll show you how thick the shell is in there. You can actually just hit it with your meat pounder. Be careful, but hold on to it a little bit and just give it a couple of cracks. Yeah, that worked really well. So, a little bit messy. Lobster's supposed to be messy. Okay, so now you can see, hopefully, the shell is broken into a few little shards, and then, yeah, it makes it very easy then to take out all the beautiful claw meat. So this came out pretty much in one gorgeous piece. Okay, and always check inside here. Maybe I can show you a little bit better. This is the fat that I was talking about, and it just tastes really good. Okay, we'll do the next claw. Oh, I'll tell you this later again. When you see fuzzy pieces like this, those are not edible. These are pieces of the lung, and the brain also looks a little bit fuzzy like that, so don't eat those. We're gonna do the same thing with this claw that we did with the last one. It should be a little bit easier since it's the smaller one. So we're gonna kind of wiggle and break the joints apart. I'm gonna use my dirty paper towel for this one because it's all pointy. There we go. And I'll do this joint also. Okay, and I'll show you one more time. So this piece is kind of straight, and it has a clear, like, narrow end and wide end. So this is a good candidate for just using either your finger, if you can get it in there, or the lobster pick to just push it out the narrow end, or from the narrow end out the wide end. Sometimes it just takes a little persistence. There we go. It just comes right out. Okay, I'll do these two later because they're the same as before, and then I'll show you one more time with the smaller claw. So first step again is to just, this is very spiky, use a paper towel. So just pull off the pincer and then remove this piece of cartilage. And this one I'm gonna use, there's a lot of water in there, especially with summer lobsters because there's more space in between the meat and the shell. Sometimes it'll just catch some either cooking water or seawater. That's why I like to use a bowl instead of a plate. Okay, so there's our piece of claw meat. And this time, hopefully, my crackers will work. Yeah, this is a whole different game here. So, there we go. I made one big crack, kind of before it gets to the really thick part. And then you can just pry this off. And I might crack it one more time so it's easier to get the meat out. Yep, okay. So it's always worth going slow and making sure you get each little bit of meat out. Otherwise you can miss some really delicious stuff. Okay, I'm just using my finger to push. I'm gonna break this apart a little bit where I cracked it. There we go. Okay, so now I should be able, I might actually, you can kind of make an executive game time decision whether it's easier to peel the shell off if it's nice and soft or whether you want to just push the meat through. So that time it turned out easier to peel it. So here's what we've got going so far. It's already pretty amazing. And a lot of people would stop there, but we don't do that ever. There is so much good meat still left in this part of the lobster. Okay, so the first thing is you have 8 legs here, and if you grab it by the sort of bulbous base right there, you can twist and pull. This one came out without any lung meat on it, so it's nice and clean, and you can really just like dip this into your John butter and lemon, which I'll show you a recipe for in a little while. And then you can just kind of gnaw on it. Like similar again to edamame, you can kind of bite along the leg and it pushes the meat out of each of the legs. So I'm gonna just continue removing all the legs. Okay, and this one came out with these 2 pieces of lung right on them, and this again is not edible. You can really, I don't know if you can see it in the video, but it's really, they have like almost like little hairs on them. And the texture is much less tender. So you'll be able to tell what it is, and you just want to get rid of that, and then that's the part you can eat. I'll do the rest here. This one too. And this one, lungs again. Okay, I'll just do the rest real quick, so we can get to the good stuff here. Okay, now, you might be a little bit intimidated by this, hopefully not, you don't need to be, but, so this is the body cavity and the head, obviously. And so, here's what we're gonna do to get out all this gorgeous meat. First, you're gonna take your 2 thumbs, and you're gonna put one facing down, and one facing up, so your thumbs are like this, and very gently, it's very easy to do, you just separate the inside from the shell. Okay, now, this is mostly not so edible, but I will show you there's one good piece of meat that's left in this part. So we'll do that first. Now inside here, sometimes it's a little greener, sometimes it's a little more orange. This is called tamale. It's the liver and some other detoxifying organs, and it's really delicious, but for the most part, we are not advised to eat it now because the oceans aren't as clean as they once were, and so these filtering organs can end up collecting a lot of toxins. To be honest, I sometimes eat it anyway, but just word to the wise, it's not advised. So we will just clean it out. Nobody said this wasn't messy. And then let's just open this up, and I'm going to show you. This is the least attractive part of the process, but you can sometimes get a really good piece of meat from inside here. So here, I'll get rid of more of the tamale. And then mostly what you're going to find in this part of the lobster is just the brain, which you don't want to eat. But let's find, there's usually one nice piece of meat in here. There's actually, I didn't do such a great job separating the tail, so I don't know if you can see this, but this is really good tail meat that was just left in there. And this is like the fat and the fat layer, so you can choose if you want to eat that or not. I like to eat it. I really like to eat almost everything. There's nothing left in here. And then this is the part where you want to separate out. There's usually like one nice chunk of meat in here. It's a little bit messy today. Okay. So, where'd it go? I wish that you could touch this because I want to show you the different ways that it feels, but all of this is something to discard. And I can't actually find a good piece of meat in here today, so we'll just leave it. There have been like little bits that have fallen out that are good. You can usually, the lobster meat from the inside of the body cavity looks very, very similar to like the claw or tail meat, so you should be able to identify it that way. Okay, I'm gonna clean up a little bit here. I'm gonna take the rest of the body cavity and just wipe off the tamale. Okay, so this is where the magic happens. You have to really get in there. This is what's left of the body, and it's basically a rib cage, give or take. And what you're gonna do is kind of unfold it like a little puzzle. There's a lot of connective cartilage inside here, and inside a lot of the little pieces of cartilage are these gorgeous nuggets of lobster meat. It's some of the most tender meat. And when you get a lobster roll often, or lobster salad often, this is kind of what makes up the bulk of it. So I'm just gonna use my 2 thumbs again, and similarly to what we did with the tail, I'm just gonna crack open this piece down the middle. Okay, and then you're just gonna start kind of unfolding it. So we're gonna take off this part. I hope you can see this. I'm gonna just unfold a little bit and look right away inside here. I'm just peeling away the cartilage, and look, this is just like a gorgeous chunk of lobster meat. And we'll do it again. Here's another one. Just have to be willing to reach in, and you just collect these beautiful little nuggets. And if you just, here's another one. It all just looks like good old lobster meat, which is what it is. So if you find something that's hard or something that's kind of fuzzy, you want to put that to the side and discard it, but just keep on unraveling it and you find these beautiful pieces of meat. And in my opinion, you're not finished eating your lobster until all of this meat is gone. And I think that you can choose your friends wisely and eat lobsters with people who don't mind getting messy, and then you get to eat it all. And it's better, to me, if you're gonna kill a lobster to eat it, you might as well honor it by eating everything. Okay, so that's some cartilage. Just keep unfolding. You have these little pieces that keep coming out. Usually what we like to do is I make butter, and I don't do drawn butter. I don't like separate the milk solids because I think they have so much delicious taste. So I just melt some really good butter, like a Kerrygold salted butter, and then for one, basically 2 sticks of butter, so 1 package of something like Kerrygold, I will then take the juice of about 1.5 lemons and just mix it right in, and then I pour a little bit of that into a small like ramekin or bowl for everyone. And then as you go through and remove these beautiful pieces of meat from the inside of the lobster, you can actually just like put them right into the whatever's left of your butter, and then eat it with a fork after if you want to. Okay, that one's done. I'll do the rest later. I'll show you a little bit more. Oops. So just break open inside here. Here's another gorgeous chunk. I won't subject you to the rest of it, but I'll continue to do this off camera, and then I'm gonna eat a delicious lobster feast. So I hope this was helpful. This is something that I've been meaning to do for a really long time. And so here, let me show you one more time. This gorgeous plate of meat. And I have a great post on umamigirl.com that has all the information you'll need about how to choose good lobsters and how to cook them. I always steam them in really salty water, and I think I cook them a little bit less than a lot of people do, so the meat is just very, very tender. So please check that out. I'll leave a link to it, and thanks for watching. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.